pulled the ordinance together.
Want to make
We're
sure.
not adopting it tonight.
Right,
so
right. No,
anything that.
the main reason is I want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Oh, no. That's why I put it out there.
Okay.
Nobody's seen it.
First order of business is
Let's just, we'll throw stuff into whoever has it.
But I was going to make a motion about the officers, the district.
Yes, that is it, thank you.
No, I started to write, you're going to read. I suggested they go back to the county. And I thought, I have to be the smart ass tonight anyway.
You're a child. They just call it crazy.
Anyway.
Settle down, Miss Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Would you please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On this National Day of Prayer, I'd like to ask Ms. Wilson to lead us in the invocation tonight.
Will you bow for prayer? Gracious and loving God, you've given us all we need for life. We're grateful for your generosity, and we know you provide for our deepest need. We ask your help to always depend on you and not depend on status, prestige, heritage, wealth, and all other things of our own volition to supply our need. Give us wisdom tonight to be the people you called us to be. Help us to always listen, hear your voice, even in the voices of others with whom you surround us. Give us courage to do your will, especially when it's difficult. We pray in the strength of your powerful resurrection. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to call our May 4th, 2023 council meeting to order. Again, with consideration to approve tonight's agenda. Are there any changes, revisions, additions?
Mr. Mayor, a couple of things. First, I need to request an executive session for real estate litigation.
Okay.
Second of all, we did receive a letter earlier today by email from the applicant on the annexation that's the public hearing tonight, seeking to postpone that public hearing until June. We did let the applicant know that their reason for postponement for site plan changes would not work, that they could either move forward with the public hearing or they could withdraw their application. And I don't know if they're here to let us know what their preference is. Okay, so that will stay on the agenda as a public hearing.
Okay, great. Any further changes, revisions, or motions?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
second.
A motion, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Again, tonight we have one guest and visitor, but before that, I have one proclamation to present. This is the City of Canton Proclamation number 202-30504 in honor of 54th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, April 30th through May 6, 2023. Whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to either mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations, Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Bill Grant, Mayor of the City of Canton, do recognize the week of April 30th through May 6th, 2023 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Annie Fortner, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. And I'd like to ask Ms. Fortner to join me for the proclamation and thank her for her great work that she does.
It's like, where's Lauren?
We appreciate you, Ms. Fortner. We couldn't do it without you. And then also we would like to welcome an update from the Canton Housing Authority on their property and projects.
Yes. My name is Paul Robinson, and I'm with Sepia Transformation Partners. I've been working with the Canton Housing Authority for over the last 3 years in trying to reposition their public housing assets. And then I'll let Jackie introduce herself.
I'm Jackie Loberg. I've been the executive director for approximately 2 years.
And I just wanted to thank the mayor and the city council. I've been doing this business for about 25 years, and I just haven't seen the support that the city council, the mayor, and the staff of the city of Canton has been able to give us over the last 3 years. It's very, very unusual, so I don't want you all to think that this is something that we take lightly. Between attending board meetings in terms of crafting the urban redevelopment plan, in terms of creating a GIT community, all of those things are extremely important for what we believe kind of creates a vibrant community in terms of housing. So I just want to thank you all for all the work that you all have been putting in over the last couple of years in that process. So as you know, we basically have gone through several processes in terms of putting in applications to the Department of Community Affairs to get what's called funding under the 9% tax credit development. And so we were successful last year in getting Tanner Place funded. It's a 70-unit development. We're going to be able to demolish all the units that's on Ship Street right now and then replace them with 70 brand new units. And this is under what's called the HUD-RAD program. The HUD-RAD program has been instituted to allow private developers to partner with housing authorities to use the leveraging of resources to kind of like revitalize these communities that have been around since the 50s, 60s, and 70s with no significant amount of money put into them. So we've got the Tanner Place deal funded in December of 2022. And because of the way this process works, we have to work with 3 different funding agencies. We have to work with the Department of Community Affairs, we have to work with HUD, and then we have to work with what we call equity investors. And so the timeline that you see up there kind of shows you the kind of things that we have to go through with HUD. So anytime you see something that deals with RAD, that's the HUD process. And so the closing process is when we close with an equity investor. So I think the thing that you all are more concerned with is when is closing going to take place on Tanner Place and when does construction start? So this process, because when we submit our application, we don't have full construction documents. So the last 5 months, we've been working on construction documents, and then we'll submit those to the investors for the ultimate approval. That process takes anywhere between 5 and 7 months. So here we are today. We're going to submit our for our RAD concept call in May. This month, we're going to submit our financing plan right after that. Once we get the financing plan, then HUD basically says to us, you have to go ahead to close on the deal. From there, we start working with our investors. We've selected our investor as U.S. Bank, one of the biggest banks that does this kind of funding. And that's going to, DCA has a deadline for us to close in November. We're going to try to speed that up and close by October of this year. It takes about 18 months to do the construction work. So what you see on the timeline, when you say lease up starts, we're talking about May 2024, and then hopefully will be completed by December of 2024. And what stabilization is 3 months after construction is completed. So meaning that you have your property stabilized. So that's the timeline for Tanner Place in terms of the funding. Oakside property, the Housing Authority had 145 units, so we've done 70 units in Tanner Place. The next development is Oakside, which was 75 units. What we've been fortunate enough to do is be able to bifurcate the property and put 75 units as a proposed development on one half of the property. So that also leaves another 7 or 8 acres for phase 2. So we might be able to have the opportunity to expand affordable housing on the Canton Housing Authority's property. But the 75 units that we're going to submit an application in May of this year, it's due on May 19th. We're trying to wrap up everything by May 12th. Is going to go in in May of 2023. We won't know whether or not we got funded until November or December of this year. And if we get funded, it would basically be the same timeline that you see up there for Tanner Place. We get funded in December, then we've got to go through 7 to 8 months of due diligence and negotiations with HUD and the equity investors, and then we'll close around the same time that we're talking about for Tanner Place, just a year later. All I can say is that in terms of getting 9% deals funded, it's a very, very competitive process. When we got Tanner Place funded, fortunately, we were the second highest ranked deal in the category. And I want to say this, but I want to knock on wood, we didn't have any mistakes on our application. This year, we hope for the same thing, and we think that we're going to have a higher scoring deal just because of what the city was able to do with the urban redevelopment plan, having the GIT community, all of those are point scoring items. The city of Canton committed $1 million a long time ago when we were talking about our 4% application, and we submitted that. That application didn't get funded, but it really set the stage for us to get the 9% application together. So what we're requesting is that the city of Canton continue to support us with the $1 million of funding. And there's a little caveat with that is because part of the scoring criteria is what we call off-site improvements. And Mr. Patton has been able to send me over all the off-site improvements that you all expect to have. The off-site improvements have to be within a half a mile of the Canton Housing Authority's property. And it has to be completed by January 2026. And in order for us to get a point, we need $1,875,000 of off-site improvements. Right now, we've got $1,600,000 in the vicinity of the Canton Housing Authority. So we'll at least get 1 point. But as a developer and Canton Housing Authority representative, we're always trying to get as many points as we can because we don't know what's going to be taken away from our point scoring or not. So we're asking the City Council to consider the $1 million that you all have committed to us in 2022 be bifurcated in such a way that $725,000 of that be committed as a loan, and then $275,000 be committed as third-party off-site improvements. Those off-site improvements will be dedicated to the site and really repairing the sewer on the Oakside property. Currently, the sewer is owned by the city and maintained by the city. We always try to figure out a win-win in these situations, and because the city of Canton has given us some money on Tanner Place as well as Oakside, we thought it would be best that we put that money in the deal, the $725,000 in the deal on infrastructure work, because I don't know if you've seen the Oakside property, the topography there is pretty rough. And so we're going to have to raise up the units to make sure they have accessibility and visibility so that people can visit them. And fair housing basically says that you have to make sure that that can take place. So there's a lot of infrastructure work that's going on. So we wanted the $725,000 to still be as a loan. But the $275,000 will get us to getting an extra point on the deal. And so we would like that to be a third-party off-site contribution. And third-party contributions, it can't come from the Housing Authority. It can't come from us. The Housing Authority is already putting $2 million in to get us the favorable financing points. And so we're just asking the city to consider modifying the loan to have $725,000 be a loan and then $275,000 be as a third-party contribution. And so any questions we're willing to answer now.
Any questions for Mr. Robinson?
I don't have one so much for Mr. Robinson as I do Ms. Loberg. On the schedule, the construction start is slated for October of 2023. Can you talk for just a second about what thought process or if there's any planning that's already taken place, given that this is 6 months away relative to the current residents?
Yes, so we go through a very strategic relocation of our residents. And so what we're actually discussing now is we are, 5 to 6 months out, and we are going to break our project into phases. So what we're working on now is relocating our current residents into different units. The good thing about the Housing Authority is all 3 of our properties are in one AMP, so it's funded as one whole property with HUD. So right now we're in the process of moving residents around. The way that we do that is we will pay for moving, we pay for all relocation fees, everything for our residents. And then within 1 year, the residents will be relocated back into a brand new unit at Tanner Place. So that's what we're working on right now as far as moving folks around. And we hope to, that's about 20 units or so that we need to empty out. And we're going to be relocating them, like I said, on our property. Once that's done, we'll begin the rest of the process. And then by December 2024, once everything's completed on the other 2 sides of Ship Street, we'll move everyone from Jefferson Circle and the remaining residents that were originally from Ship Street back to that property.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you both very much. Appreciate the updates.
Thank you all again.
Next, we do have the one public hearing we discussed earlier. And before we begin, I'll have Mr. Peppers review our procedures and guidelines for public hearings before we begin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for attending tonight's City of Canton public hearing. We will have a public hearing on the cases of annexation and rezoning that are listed on the screen. These hearings are recorded verbatim and become part of a legal record for the cases being discussed. As such, you are required to sign up and fill out an affidavit to speak during the public hearing process. The public hearing was advertised in the legal organ, noticed to neighboring property owners under our development code via mail, and noticed to the public at large via yellow public notice signs on the property that are part of the case. The hearing will begin with a declaration of the mayor to open the public hearing, including case number, description of the case, and a summary by our staff. Those wishing to speak in favor of the applicant, including the applicant, will be given the first opportunity to speak. They will have a total of 10 minutes to speak on behalf of their position. Those in opposition will be given a total of 10 minutes to speak on behalf of their position. Those in support may reserve time to rebut or comment on any of the opposition statements. Once all parties have spoken or the total time for each side has expired, the mayor will close the public hearing. At that time, the city council will be free to discuss the case and question staff about the case. In the interest of all parties and to give fairness to both sides, I will be the timekeeper of the 10 minutes for each side. As there may be several speakers, we ask that you keep your comments concise and try not to duplicate the comments of other speakers. Please give your name and address for the record before you start your comments. Please address your comments to the council. The audience is asked to maintain decorum. Cheering, talking, jeering, or clapping during the public hearing process is not appropriate. Those that cannot adhere to the guidelines may be called out of order by the mayor and escorted from the meeting. The hearing is a monologue. Council will not address comments during the hearing time, but again will address their questions to staff after the public hearing is closed.
Thank you, Mr. Peppers. So tonight's public hearing is for cases ANNX 2303-002, and RZON 2303-001, annexation and rezoning request for 1.42 acres to be zoned general commercial for proposed convenience store with fuel pumps located at Hurd Road and Fate Con Road. Mr. Green?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you just stated, this is an annexation request for 1.42 acres and a rezoning request to go have the property rezoned to general commercial for the operation of a convenience store with gas pumps. Along with the application, the applicant is requesting 2 variances for buffer reduction. We have received several comments from the neighbors. We have received some comments from the county. They should all be in your possession. The community input meeting was included in the agenda items. And as Mr. Pepper stated earlier, the applicant had asked for the postponement, but he has stated earlier that they would like to go ahead with the public hearing. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. I know there's been some concerns about this maybe from council that may have questions that I can answer or get the answers to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. So at this time, we will open the public hearing for cases ANNX 2303-002 and RZON 2303-001. And we'll begin with the applicant and open the 10-minute public input for the applicant and anyone in favor of the cases.
Mayor and Council, if you don't mind, the applicant presented us with a presentation just prior to this meeting. It is our policy that these presentations are provided to us about 24 hours in advance of the meeting. It allows us an opportunity to review those and integrate those in the slideshow that you see before you. We've not had an opportunity to do that. So I do have it on flash drive, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to present it to you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram.
No worries. I have hard copies I can provide to the city council members. That is all right. Thank you. All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Bryson Mercer. I am a zoning attorney for Miles, Hansford, and Talent at 202 Triple Gap Road, Suite 200 in Cumming, Georgia. And as Steve mentioned earlier, this is a rezoning and annexation application for 1.42 acres located off of Fate Con Road. We are requesting to rezone from AG, which is a Cherokee County designation, their general agricultural designation, to GC, general commercial, in the city of Canton for a convenience store with fuel pumps. And so, as mentioned earlier, we did request 2 buffer variances, one on the western boundary and one on the southern boundary. We have a revised site plan that we received this morning, which is why we requested to postpone this meeting. And we would still like to request to postpone this meeting if you would grant it. However, the revised site plan no longer requires the requested variance along the western boundary. We have a 50-foot buffer as required by code along that boundary. And along the southern boundary, we had requested to take that variance or take that buffer from 50 feet to 5 feet. Now we are still asking for a variance to take that to 25 feet along the southern boundary. If you'll look on this third slide, that's an area map. I would also like to point out that this property is located in the suburban development area, which calls for, in the comprehensive plan, development strategies providing neighborhood-level commercial directly adjacent to the neighborhoods to provide residential access to goods and services, which we believe is exactly what we are proposing here by the comprehensive plan that you all have drafted. If you'll look on slide 4, you'll see that there is general commercial directly north of this subject property. And if you'll look on slide 5, that is the previous site plan that we've submitted. It shows the shortened buffers along the western and southern boundary. And then on slide 6, it shows our revised site plan showing the 50-foot buffer along the adjacent HOA and the 25-foot buffer along the southern boundary. Slide 7 shows the requested variance area. We're requesting a reduction in the buffer by 25 feet. That is because that property to the south of us is still in Cherokee County and has not been annexed yet. If that subject property was not in Cherokee County and did not have an agricultural zoning, we would not need the buffer requested. That is a general overview of our application, and we'd like to request, first and foremost, a postponement so we can meet with the neighbors again and show them the revised site plan and hopefully continue working with them. But we would also like to request the annexation and rezoning of this subject property. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them, and I'll reserve the remainder of my time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have 6 minutes and 50 seconds left.
Okay. We had 4 citizens sign up to speak. I'm assuming, are anyone of those 4 here to speak in support of the application? Didn't think so. So at this time, we will open the 10-minute input for those to speak in opposition to the case, and we'll begin with Mr. Earl Darby.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, we're residents on Hurd Road. My wife's family has been on that property. We are now with my great-granddaughter there. We have 6 generations on that property. It's zoned agriculture.
Mr. Darby, will you state your name first?
Oh, Earl Walter Darby. My address is 300 Hurd Road, Canton, Georgia. I'm sorry.
Now you can start. Thank you.
Okay. But that is all agriculture and neighborhood up there. That's not the place for a gas station and not the place to bring what a gas station brings to a neighborhood. You know, it's a known statistic that when you bring convenience stores, there's a better chance of crime. And we don't want it. We don't want it in our neighborhood. And I appreciate your thoughts and considerations on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darby. Ms. Kathy Johns.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Johns, 513 Wildflower Circle, Canton, Park Village Subdivision. Hello, we meet again. As you are well aware, this is the 3rd time in a year that we have had to come before you to try to protect the integrity of our little neighborhood. We know you can't stop progress, and we feel we have been more than reasonable to date with regard to the upcoming developments surrounding our neighborhood. But to ask us to put up with a gas station, which will literally be in some of our backyards, is asking too much. This is neither progress nor is it needed. I have been informed by the county that this use is not within the county's Suburban Growth Character Area Plan, nor the city's Hickory Log Suburban Development Area Plan. These plans were well thought out and put in place for a reason, and we ask that you not make an exception for this proposed gas station, which would be an unwelcome and dangerous blight to our neighborhood and the surrounding area, for the many reasons my fellow neighbors will elaborate on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Fred Fortunato.
I'm Fred Fortunato. I reside at 507 Wildflower Circle in the Park Village subdivision. Mr. Mayor and council members, you should have received a copy of a letter dated April 10th from my wife regarding environmental, safety, and health concerns with the annexation, rezoning, and permitting of the gas station convenience store on the parcel of the land which is the topic of the agenda tonight. In case you have not had the opportunity to review her letter, misplaced it, or never received it, a copy has been distributed for your review. I will now share my thoughts. As a PhD chemical engineer, I have had the privilege of working in various industries for over 30 years. During that time, I was trained in mitigating health, safety, and environmental issues, which were of paramount importance in the workplace. One of my positions was in petroleum refining, where I learned about issues surrounding fossil fuels. In my professional opinion, locating gasoline storage tanks near or over a natural gas pipeline presents considerable fire risk to the area around the station. In addition, any leakage of the tanks or spillage from the gasoline pumps could pose a risk to the land and the groundwater in the surrounding area, thereby finding its way to the residences in the vicinity as discussed previously by others. Another aspect of my industrial experience taught me the basics of decision and risk analysis. Using those techniques, the financial aspects of major decisions are evaluated, taking the risks into account. As I looked at the prospects before us, I failed to see how a gas station/convenience store at the proposed location would be a financially sound investment. As I see it, the land was purchased at a steep discount since it is currently zoned residential, not commercial or agriculture, as you said. Getting the parcel rezoned to commercial will increase its value markedly. Selling part of that land back to the city reduces the overall investment in the land, netting a lower cost. But what about the cash flow needed to sustain such an investment? In other words, why locate a gas station convenience store in a predominantly residential area which does not carry sustained traffic throughout the day compared to other roads such as Ball Ground Highway? With the exception of the morning and evening rush hours, there is minimal drive-by traffic in front of that corner of Fate Con Road compared to a major route like Ball Ground Highway. It appears to me that significantly more revenue is possible for a gas station located on a busier road. If locating a gas station on Fate Con is financially advantageous compared to other locations, why haven't other companies looked at putting one there? Now let's examine the timing of this rezoning request. I find it convenient that this is being discussed when the Summer Walk Townhouse expansion is just getting started. This means there are no residents there yet who may oppose having a gas station/convenience store located across the street from their subdivision. As I've stated previously, the busiest times for traffic are during the morning and evening rush hours. How can Fate Con handle traffic that will be going into and out of the area in question at those times? And how will gasoline tanker trucks negotiate the area to make deliveries? Is there a plan to mitigate potential traffic slowdowns? Let's examine another scenario. What if the gas station convenience store does not produce revenues the owner needs or hopes to attain and the station closes? What happens to the gasoline storage tanks in the ground? Who will pay to have them removed and the land restored to a less hazardous condition? I learned in civics and government class that elected officials are supposed to represent the interests of the people they serve. We rely on your good judgment related to zoning to protect our health and safety. While annexing additional land, especially if zoned commercial, may increase the property tax base in the area, the concerns aired tonight associated with such action must also be considered. Based on my analyses and business knowledge, I see little advantage for locating a gas station/convenience store on Fate Con Road and ask you to vote no to the annexation, the rezoning to commercial use, and the permitting of a gas station convenience store for the property in question. In my judgment, permitting for a gas station convenience store should not be approved under any circumstances. Please don't let potential property tax revenue resulting from a gas station/convenience store be considered ahead of the safety and health of the citizens you represent. Thank you for this opportunity to share my assessment with you regarding the parcel of land located on Fate Con Road adjacent to Park Village.
Thank you, Mr. Fortunato. Bobby Nama.
4 minutes and 22 seconds left.
Bobby Nama, live at 112 Park Village Drive. If this gas station's allowed, I'll be able to see it from my bedroom window every night. Totally against the gas station coming in, 100%. If you live in Park Village and you're opposed, or if you're opposed to this gas station, please stand up. Please stand up. We've got a pretty good representation here tonight showing you what we're looking at and why we're not happy with the gas station. I gave you 2 handouts. This first handout here is what this county plans on putting on that corner as far as a retention pond. It takes up a large portion of it. The area in orange is Park Village. That's how close we butt to this. On the next page is the actual gas station going in. If you notice, this road here cuts halfway through the pond. The pond is 10 feet deep before they do this. When they put that road in there, which the county has asked them to do, if the gas station goes in, that pond's going to be 20 foot deep. Now, Park Village is downhill from there. If you notice the little green circles, this is your math class for the day, those are topography. It's showing that we're going down with all that. So everything from this area comes down into Park Village. There are no drain easements for the above property to drain into Park Village. We actually have a catch basin behind one of the houses that catches the rainwater that goes in there. The gas station is in the blue is showing their underground retention. Their underground retention cannot drain into our property. It's going to seep into the ground or evaporate. Well, if it's underground, how's it going to evaporate? So it's going to leach down in the ground. Where's it going to come up? In my backyard. Please don't allow this to happen. There's too many things that can go wrong with this. It's not set up right. The area is too tight. The roundabout already is going to be having so much traffic in it already. To put an entrance and an exit to a gas station on both sides is going to make it a nightmare for us to get out of our subdivision and to make through the roundabout. So with that being said, very simply, we're against having the gas station come in on that area. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nama. And that is all citizens we had sign up to speak in opposition. I believe the applicant had some reserved time. Mr. Peppers?
6 minutes and 50 seconds.
Thank you, and thank you to the citizens that came out and voiced their opinion tonight. I would like to point out that it was mentioned that this development does not call, or the comprehensive plan does not call for this development. I would like to reiterate that the suburban development area development strategies do call for providing neighborhood-level commercial directly adjacent to neighborhoods for residential access to goods and services, which, as I mentioned before, we believe we are providing this. You do not have to, drive all the way into town to get, milk or, a six-pack of beer, or whatever you prefer. I would also like to point out that on slide 4, as you saw earlier, there is general commercial in this area. It is not all residential or agricultural. It's right across the street on the other side of this roundabout. So it's not unheard of. There's industrial now to the south, not far away from here. And we believe this would be a great area to serve the residents with our proposed use. It is located at the corner of an expanding roundabout. What else do you put at the corner of an expanding roundabout that has traffic coming, a lot of traffic coming to it, from my understanding, in the mornings and the evenings? General commercial property is generally found at the corner of most intersections. And then it was also mentioned the environmental and health concerns were brought up. Our client doesn't want fuel spills any more than anyone else does. It's expensive, it's a regulation hazard, and it's a nightmare. Double-walled tanks, double-walled fuel lines will abide by all state regulations regarding that and EPA regulations. Nobody wants any gas leaking or anything like that coming out of any development whatsoever that occurs. And then, traffic with the roundabout coming, we believe this is keeping up with progress. There's traffic almost everywhere nowadays. I drove here from Cumming on 20. It was an absolute nightmare. It took me about an hour, which is just crazy. It happens everywhere, and we completely understand that. And we know, the roundabout expanding. Cherokee Department of Transportation and GDOT are working all over the place right now. So traffic is a concern to everyone, and we're certainly willing to help out with that. As for the buffers that were mentioned earlier, we're certainly open to an enhanced buffer. So, the neighbors of Park Village will not be able to see our development. If we had more time, we were talking with our engineers earlier this morning to actually flip the location of the building to revise that site plan. So you wouldn't see a building at all from Parkside Village, or you would only see it from the right-of-way in the corner of that proposed roundabout. If there are any questions from City Council, I'll be more than happy to answer those. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. This time we will close our public hearing and open up to council for questions for Mr. Green. Mr. Green, I'll have a couple of questions. I'll lead off here. I know we're being asked to consider annexation into the city of this property. The city's future land use map for this area, what other uses for that parcel are shown on our city's future land use other than general commercial?
Well, as Mr. Mercer stated, neighborhood level commercial is a recommended use, not general commercial, and residential uses are recommended.
And then what, other than convenience store with gas pumps, what other types of uses could be used on that parcel? Of other types of businesses, or you mentioned residential, of course, but other types of businesses?
Well, in the neighborhood commercial zoning district, I've got quite a list here of uses that are allowed, and I can read them out for you if you like.
Sure.
All right. Family personal care home, 2 to 6 residents. Group personal care, 17 to 15 residents. Congregate personal care, 16 plus residents. Life care services, which is a continuing care retirement center. Skilled nursing services, a nursing home. Health and human services, medical and non-medical. Family daycare, 3 to 6 children. Group daycare, 7 to 18 children. Child daycare center, 19 plus children. Grade schools, college and universities, that takes a CUP permit. Technical and trade schools, that also requires a CUP. A library, museum, zoo, public safety facility, cemetery requires a CUP. Social club requires a CUP. Banquet hall, religious facility also requires a CUP. Performance theater, movie theater, parks, trails, office and bank with or without a drive-through. Offices over a building storefront. Retail sales of goods, mail order or direct sales, retail sales, antique shops, grocery stores, bakeries, a catering business, convenience store with or without fuel pumps, that requires a conditional use permit, health and personal care services, personal services, pet store, animal and pet services, veterinarian, restaurant with or without a drive-through, bar or drinking place, a gas station, that also requires a CUP, a surface parking area, a wireless telecommunications facility also requires a CUP, communication and information establishment, a utility substation, and a greenhouse or a nursery.
Awesome. Well, obviously the list is extensive, so obviously there are lots of uses for that parcel that could be considered. One other question before I ask council their questions. Mention the parcel, I think, across from this one as general commercial. What is on that parcel and how is that being used?
It's a vacant piece of property now. Several years ago, it was rezoned to general commercial, and it's more to the, I'll say, northeast of the subject property. And there is some general commercial on the south side of Hurd Road to the east side, and that is also vacant or undeveloped.
Okay. So even though it's zoned general commercial right now, it is not being used as general commercial?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Council, Ms. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to first thank all the residents who have been involved and vocal. I have not been able to reply to all the emails yet, but I wanted to just confirm that those have been received, and we always read them and do our due diligence. I did want to ask Mr. Peppers if you could explain what is the city council's obligation when a property owner wants to annex or rezone a piece of property. It's not that we have gone out and said to someone, gosh, we'd really like you to build a gas station here. What is the process?
So in the state of Georgia, a property owner who's adjacent to a municipality can apply for annexation. There's some requirements on distances and things like that. And when an application for annexation is submitted, the city is required by law to hold a public hearing to hear that case. Additionally, property owners are allowed to petition for rezoning. And if there is a rezoning request, the city council by law is required to hear that case.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was on public record and that it was clear for everyone, because I know sometimes some of the communication we get is that people are already mad at us just for listening, but it's our job to listen, and I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody, and we're listening and reading all the emails as well, not just to an applicant. And then, Mr. Green, I have one more question right now. Do you know if the applicant has created a business plan?
I do not know.
Could you find out for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I have one.
Mr. Waterman?
Mr. Green, I think a recurring theme in the emails that we've received over the past few weeks has been, aside from the environmental impacts, the increased chance of crime. Do we have any statistics specific to Canton that could speak to that as far as convenience stores, gas stations?
Yes, sir, we do. I've got a memo here from an Officer Robles from the police department, and I can read that to you if you've not already received it, or I can read it in for the record if you like. Right.
Please do.
Right. The email states, I, Crime and Intel Analyst Robles, did a statistical analysis of violent crime at gas stations and convenience stores in the Canton area. Below are the findings. A search of violent crime reports in our record management system between January 1st, 2021 and December 31st, 2022 include the following codes. 09A, murder manslaughter, 100, kidnapping, 11A, forcible rape, 11C, sexual assault with object, 11D, forcible fondling, 120, robbery, 13A, aggravated assault. Findings show that between the above dates, the city had a total of 64 cases in the RMS, the Record Management System, citywide. A secondary search showed 0 cases in the above listed criminal codes occurred at convenience store location or gas stations. A search of crime reports in our record management system between the same dates show 50,257 records of all NRBS codes. A secondary search showed 722 cases occurred at a convenience store location or gas station. His conclusion, according to our record management system, convenience stores and gas stations made up for 0% of violent crime and 1.44% of all reports in Canton between January 1st, 2021 and December 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Green, and thanks to our police department for getting that information and stats that are relevant to our local communities. So. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Green? Okay, thank you, Mr. Green. So we will be considering this case and voting on it at our next meeting. So, also just for the record, the public hearing is closed, so we cannot entertain any public comments, but as always, the citizens are free to continue to email council, mayor and council with continued comments, and we know you're not shy about doing that, so we welcome your feedback. Okay. Moving on into our business meeting. You have in your packet our draft minutes from our April 20th council meeting. Do we have any changes or revisions? Any motions?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. We have a couple informational items this evening. These are for information only for council, and no discussion or action this evening. We'll begin with item A. This is 100% clean and renewable energy resolution. This is Mr. Roy Taylor from our Environmental and Sustainability Advisory Board. Mr. Taylor, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So it is wonderful that so many of the things that are part of this resolution have already started to be addressed by the city. This resolution is based on the work of 6 other cities and counties around the state of Georgia. We already have Athens, Clark County, the city of Atlanta, Savannah, Augusta, Decatur, and DeKalb County that have all passed similar resolutions moving in this direction. So this is something that we're not new at, but we are trying to join with other cities in seeing our responsibility to work in the direction of being able to find alternatives to the use of fossil fuels. We just heard concerns about fossil fuels in this last zoning case. There's countless ones that we can bring forward. I believe that most of you are aware of them, and that if you would need more information on that, I can certainly get that to you. The science is in. We need to work toward rapidly decarbonizing our systems. And so this is what we are bringing forth, is really it's a plan to get the city to commit to this, to be able to create a plan for how we can accomplish this. So since this was first presented a little over 3 years ago, the city has done great things. They have created the Environmental and Sustainability Advisory Board, and I am proud to represent them this evening in bringing this information forward as they voted. The addition of the solar panels and the EV charging stations on our parking garage, the fact that the city has hired Schneider Electric to come in and start doing assessments about how we can best be using our energy in the city. And we will hear later in tonight's meeting about the work that's being done toward moving the city toward one of the ARC's green communities when the green plan is presented. There are a variety of different things between the whereases and the therefores, but you have already had them in front of you, so I don't know that I need to go over any of them specifically, other than to call out and major interest of what we are trying to accomplish here is to set in motion the creation of the plan that will help us to get to 100% renewable energy for the city of Canton. So there's one of the line items is for an 18-month study to prepare that report that would be worked upon by the Sustainability Board to be able to bring back to you the best advice that they can come up with for how this is different than the other cities, although there are many similarities that are coming forward. This plan would be built on plans that we already have. There's a number of articles within the Canton Visioning 2050 plan that the city has adopted. The comprehensive plan for 2040 has some of these different aspects to it, and this would just be refining those, bringing, and folding those into the new work that would need to be accomplished. So we are looking forward to the city approving this, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer or to get the information for you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Taylor. I mean, we will take this into consideration and consider it and review it and consider putting on a future agenda for further discussion. So thank you, and we appreciate the work of our Environmental and Sustainability Advisory Board. So doing great work. Thank you so much. Next, we have the review of our March financials. You have that information in your packet this evening, and Finance Director Ms. Forrester is here this evening. It's great to see you. Have any questions? I think Ms. Schmidt, did you have a question?
I believe that's Mr. Tillman.
Oh, Mr. Tillman, I'm sorry.
Yes, Ms. Forrester, I do have one question as it relates to the budget for the roll-off containers at Ridge Road. I noted that The run rate currently, the annual budget is $120,000. The March spend was $27,611. The current run rate will put us at $331,332 for the year, which is, of course, way over budget. And I just wanted to see if you had some comments relative to why this, the disparity, and is there anything you think or Mr. Peppers thinks we might do to close that gap?
Well, a couple of things. We have looked into the purchase of a compactor that would allow us to get more in the containers that are being rolled off at Ridge Road. We saw an influx in the first quarter of the year specifically as we were going through the transition service. You had individuals who were bringing more into the site than we have historically seen. It's kind of a fine line because we do want the residents to utilize the roll-off site. We would prefer to have it there than for somebody to illegally dump somewhere else in the city. We have talked about the possibility of implementing some future fees for some items out there to help offset some of the cost. It's one of those things where, you know, if we look at the budget only and say we have to close the site, we expect those items to show up somewhere, and that might not be helpful to the residents either. So as we're working right now on next year's budget specifically, we're looking at some items that we can look through. But we do feel like if we can get more compaction on what is going in the roll-off containers on the site, we can control those costs a good bit compared to where they are right now.
Perfect. And I guess as a follow-up, do we have any idea what the going rate is for such compactor? I hate to put you on the spot. Maybe we need to look into that.
20,000, I think, was what we had looked at.
How much?
20,000.
Okay. All right, that's perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to bring it up as something for us to think about, because it's obviously a big uptick in comparison to the budget.
Sounds like a job for the sanitation committee to me, Mr. Waterman.
It does.
Nay.
Ms. McGrew, did you have a question?
I do. Am I correct in understanding that the city pays for the roll-off site through the franchise funds we receive from Waste Pro?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And other commercial sanitation service providers in the city limits.
Okay, so the franchise fee from Waste Pro helps pay for the roll-off site, and other commercial, say that again, please?
Other companies
Commercial
do commercial.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
And since we're at the six-month mark into the fiscal year, I just wanted to highlight a few items and briefly touch on a few issues that I thought you need to ponder over, because we'll be bringing items back to you in a couple of months, next month through the summer. First of all, since we're on the sanitation fund, I wanted you to notice the cash balance in the financials. Right now, it's at negative $42,000 for the sanitation fund, and that is after we loaned $120,000 earlier this year in November. And the reason we loaned $120,000 initially was because franchise fees are collected in arrears. So we anticipated repaying the $120,000 if all of our revenues and expenditures fell in line with budget. The issue we're having now is that the roll-off site is far exceeding the budget. We're 6 months into the year, and we've already exceeded the full budget for that site. So this is going to be an issue we will need to address. We may even need to loan more money to the sanitation fund, or you'll continue to see that cash balance increase in a negative way.
And I would note too on that roll-off site also handles all of the garbage at our facilities, sanitation from all of our parks, the downtown area. It handles some of our debris as it relates to certain items that we have to pick up curbside. Recall, we offer bulk pickup curbside as part of our sanitation. All of that goes in there as well.
As far as bulk pickup, do residents pay for bulk pickup?
Currently, they do not.
They do not. So it's a service that we offer to the residents within our capabilities of trash.
That's correct.
Thank you.
On a positive note, overall, revenues and investments are doing as expected or better, including our investments. Right now, our general fund investments are earning 4.58% interest, and our treasury investments are earning around 3.99% interest. So that's encouraging. We're generating revenue we had not anticipated when we established the budget last summer. As a warning, our impact fees are coming in far less than we anticipated. And impact fees fund capital projects, so we'll just have to be on alert that some of the capital projects we had anticipated funding by impact fees will not come online this year. And next year, we may have to budget a little less revenue than we have in previous years. Impact fees are issued at the time of building permits. So as building permits are going down, associated revenues with impact fees will go down also. Building permits are not even midway to fiscal year 2022 figures. Building permits are collected by the general fund, so that's going to hit our general fund a little bit. Good news is, though, on the general fund side, our insurance premium tax came in over budget. Our real estate taxes are coming in over budget. Business license, occupation taxes are coming in over budget, and that's even with several delinquencies right now. I wanted to touch on the TAD fund, because that's something new this fiscal year that we haven't seen in previous years. Right now, the TAD fund is under budget, and then we don't anticipate that increasing much more because we're already at 95% collection rate. As you'll recall, the TAD fund is our tax allocation district, and that is generally the downtown area. And the TAD fund holds all of our taxes that are an incremental increase over the base year. 2021 was the base year, so in 2022, we saw City of Canton taxes increase $67,000. Instead of our budgeted, I think we budgeted over $300,000 anticipated increase. So that's based on estimates. We overestimated. We'll have to adjust our estimates next year. And also, we may be having discussions with the county and the school board for their portion of the TAD. That would increase the budget if they agree to go along with that measure. The fiscal year 2022 budget planning is in process. We're estimating new revenues. We're looking at our expenditures right now. We'll be contacting mayor and council over the coming weeks to schedule our budget planning meetings. We'll probably have those around the first or second week of June. And we scheduled all of our public hearings to take place at the 2 council meetings in July. Our fiscal year 2022 audit is in its final stages, and we should be coming to you in June for budget amendments. And the budget amendments are just to reduce deviations between actual and budgeted expenditures and revenues after the auditor's review. And we'll get your approval and answer any questions on fiscal year 2022 financial results. And I'm here to answer any other questions if you have any for me at this time.
I would make one comment on impact fees. It's kind of a balance that we play. We have residents that don't want to see continued growth, or right now we're in an abeyance period as it relates to applications for residential. When you're not building, you don't get the impact fee. It's only the new growth that pays that, and that impact fee is to expand what you currently have. We do have several big projects that are finishing up their land disturbance permits, and we expect a couple of those projects to come online before the end of the fiscal year that may have several $100,000 worth of impact and building fees associated with them. So that kind of hits us a little bit differently as well. And then on the TAD, when we set that estimate, first year, it's really kind of hard to figure out what the assessor might assess the property at and how that might change. And it's specifically hard when it's set up as an agreement between us and two other governmental bodies on how we're going to appropriate taxes, and we haven't reached those agreements yet with the county and the school district. So Ms. Forster is exactly right. That number may change dramatically before next year's taxes come in on that district.
Okay. What's the status on the county and school board discussions there? I know we've been discussing that, but
we have the school board's policy on tax allocation district, and they just completed their agreement with the city of Holly Springs on theirs. Intergovernmental agreement to basically craft that as our draft back to the county. Same thing with the county and not the school district. We have a copy of what they just approved with Holly Springs, and we're working on drafting that back to the county.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Forster. Great to have you with us this evening. Sure. Do we have any announcements this evening? We had no one sign up for our 10-minute public input, so we will move into old business. Item A, presentation and discussion of the North Canton Cottage Court Concept Plan. We have Mr. Lou Oliver with us this evening. Mr. Patton?
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor and council members, I did set out before you a copy of Mr. Oliver's original concept plan that highlights in red potential property lines for each of the units on that original concept plan. Mr. Oliver does have an updated concept plan and house units, and he wants to discuss with you, and this is an opportunity for the city council to provide feedback to Mr. Oliver about what you like or don't like, what changes you would like to see in the concept plan, so we can try to move this project forward.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Welcome, Mr. Oliver. Great to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Were we able to upload that stick in the, you got the original? Okay, all right. I'm going to pass some things around in that case. These are my originals, so I have to get those back. Well, thanks for having me back. I brought my builder partners, the McKinney team here from South Atlanta today. And so this is the scheme that we have to date. Right now we have 10 cottages that are 875 square feet to right at about 1,000 square feet. We've got 3 accessory dwelling units on the site. I think Mr. Patton has tweaked this plan just a little bit more for a more optimal arrangement with regard to utilities. There was a concern last meeting that we create a public gathering spot, and I would propose that Unit 3 be expended for a little parklet that could be whatever we wanted it to be. It could be a pavilion, a fire pit, whatnot, or a little formal garden. So that would be one unit that would be very easy to foresee getting rid of and enhancing the plan. We've also got some more things, more recent pictures as of today of a project we're doing with McKinney in Clarksville that, thank you, that are Andrew Jackson Downing inspired Gothic cottages, because our town has a lot of Gothic revival architecture. And so we are finishing up these units now, and if anyone in Canton would like to defect, we have a unit on the market. So anyway, but it's such a good city, I don't see that happening. Since we have talked last, we have been actively discussing with McKinney the feasibility of doing housing that reflects the quality that we're used to. We do a lot of work in Serenbe and in Trilith, as well as other locations, and we both love classic architecture and high quality materials. So, but we also know that there's a dire need to create affordable housing, whether it's here in Canton or other places. And so we've entered some discussions with some systems built companies, and we feel fairly certain we could deliver these houses at around $225 a square foot hard cost on the construction. Can you get that price lower? Yes, you can, but you start sacrificing some of the quality that we feel pretty committed to. We've priced in here Pella windows, Pella front doors. We want to do entirely cementitious materials for the exterior siding and trim, and the kind of attention to detail that we think the city deserves and needs to be illustrated for the future. So with this figure, we have made some bold assumptions that may or may not be right, that the city would contribute the raw land, the development, the landscape, the hardscape, and expedited inspection permitting kind of process. Because the way to make this kind of project work and make the numbers work would be to do the whole thing in one phase. Otherwise, you have a superintendent on site for a year and a half, and the numbers just they really don't work. We would intend to build this project zero energy ready, meaning the houses would have very high R values. They would even have insulated crawl spaces. They would either contain geothermal or solar ready systems. And Austin, I want you to come up and talk about the kind of energy systems you all are accustomed to doing.
Sure. My name is Austin McKinney with McKinney Builders. Just to explain some of the features that we're typically doing in these neighborhoods, Serenbe and Trilith, we do a lot of geothermal heating and air, which is basically collecting the temperature of the ground temperature to provide you conditioned air at a much more efficient rate. We also do a lot of solar homes, inclusive of batteries or without batteries. We do a low E glass on most of our exterior windows and doors, which cuts down the greenhouse effect within the home. We do full LED lighting. We also do induction. We see induction cooktops done a lot in this type of application. Tankless water heaters are very common with the smart technology which actually studies your schedule and doesn't provide that hot water throughout the day when you're not using it. Rainwater harvesting is another option we've seen done regularly. Car charging hookups have been everly more common, and programmable thermostats, water-sense plumbing fixtures are a couple of the things that come to mind. Some of those may fit this model, some of those may not, but really we're well versed in most of those things.
So, depending on how the funding of this kind of project works, we can see that this might be 100% pre-sale, which would minimize financial exposure. Because these units are going to be very desirable, good-looking, practical, and we think we can bring these in at the right price point to make them attractive for pre-sales. So depending on your appetite, we're ready to move forward with you all.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. So questions for Mr. Oliver?
Yes. First off, Mr. Oliver, thank you so much for coming up and joining us again. Really appreciate your time and effort and all the energy that you and your team have put into this project so far. So really appreciate you and the quality of your product. So we definitely respect that. We have had discussions in the past about, we like the fact that we're going to showcase an ADU on this property. I've had numerous discussions with Mr. Patton and others on council. I would like for council to consider reducing the ADUs in this project down to one. And I don't know where that is going to be ideally located, given the fact that you're talking about if we eliminated home number 3 for a community garden-ish area, what that reduction of the other 2 ADUs might do in terms of creating some more space for activities. I mean, I'm not abreast of the kinds of things that might allow us to increase, but that's something that I feel pretty strongly about it. I do think, Mr. Mayor, that we and Mr. Patton, we definitely want to showcase our ADUs, and I just don't know that we need 3 of them on this particular property. So I'm in love with the project. I think it's going to be wildly successful. That's just kind of my thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Schmidt?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Tolman, I am fine with that idea, but I just want to make sure when we're talking about cost factors and we're trying to reach the missing middle at a price point that literally doesn't exist in the city right now, and we do want green space and community space, but are we going to outprice residents who move in by having to have HOA fees of some kind that are so high to maintain those green spaces that then it becomes inaccessible for the people we're trying to reach?
Sure.
I think that I think the HOA fees can be definitely contained with as little yard space that we have. And I think the addition of this little parklet, it's probably 40 by 50 feet. And I don't see that being an onerous landscape bill. I don't think so. If we had a pool, it would be very different. But I think we can do a great job landscaping and do a lot of xeriscaping, do a lot of native around the edges, and keep those HOA fees down, because that obviously is a part of affordability.
Okay.
But I do think we have to model this in the best possible manner and create an A-plus perception of this kind of housing.
As a follow-up to that, Ms. Schmidt, if I may, in numerous discussions I've had with Mr. Patton, we still believe this may not fall into the category that we have previously defined as affordable, attainable, but very close to that price point. So I don't think we're going to be pricing very many people out of the market, and if we can save some costs here or there without compromising the quality of the product, we'll certainly look at that. And I know Mr. Patton and I talked earlier today, for instance, about the potential of eliminating some drain piping if we reposition 1 or 2 of the homes. And Mr. Patton, you prepared to talk about that for just a second?
Yes, sir, Mr. Tolan, council members. The little schematic that I provided all the council members, you'll see the property line, if you will, between Unit 1 and 2, 1A, 3, and 4. That common property line, if you will, is the center line of a storm pipe between two catch basins. With that particular configuration and layout that Mr. Oliver put together, if we keep that, we could keep that section of storm pipe in the ground, not affect any of the homes, that sort of thing. That would reduce our, if you will, upfront infrastructure construction cost relative to providing the streets. There is a water line that's going to have to be removed and replaced. General estimate for the initial construction cost before buildings start going erect is somewhere around $52,000 per unit. That's based upon 10 units. If you count, you drop one unit, you drop 2 ADUs, you're still going to be at about that 10 unit numbers. Total construction cost estimates that I've worked with some local people on is about $525,000 to get this site ready for going vertical with the structures.
And if I may, that does not include any costs that we previously poured into the project.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Oliver, and you, just to verify, you mentioned working and discussing with some vendors, system-built companies. You felt confident that you could get a hard cost of around $225 per square foot. Talking about the largest unit being around 1,000 square feet, or are we talking about $225,000 for the largest unit in there? So
Yes, sir.
okay, so that's a little bit less than what we were talking about the last time, correct? Is that for the hard cost construction on the units themselves? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. McGrew?
Thank you. Mr. Oliver, your work is outstanding. Thank you so much for a beautiful project. And your other developments are gorgeous, too. I'm the one that spoke up about needing community space. This is our flagship, our premier project, if we do indeed do it. And so it's one of our tenets to have community space, build excellent communities. And I appreciate you taking the point of taking out Unit 3 to achieve that goal. I was wondering, and you had mentioned only one ADU. If we took that community space down to ADU 4A and 5, that would give us a little bit more room for community space, recreation, grilling, and possibly room enough for a garden, a community garden, whatever they wanted, vegetables. That would be very nice for the community. And I was wondering, are any of the units going to be zero entry for people who are step challenged?
Yes, we would do whatever percentage we wanted to do, or whatever we all thought was feasible. Conceivably, they can all be zero entry, but with a lot of the systems built, you're going to be doing a 4-foot crawl space with super strong concrete walls that are also insulated and prefabricated, because the units would set on those and not a concrete slab. And so to do a zero entry, we have to find the right site conditions to make that work, but I have no doubt we can do a full third of these zero entry, and I think it's a great idea.
If I can throw this out there, as one who's challenged in many areas, I found that my kitchen that has all drawers underneath the countertop is extremely helpful for someone who has back issues. And Ms. Schmidt.
Yes. Sorry.
Did you need to say something?
No, I did not.
Your comment about landscaping and all, it was my hope that we could go turfless, because turf needs chemicals, and we're trying to lessen as many chemicals as we can in the city. Also eats up money with manpower. And I was wondering, if we went to ground covers and mulch, if the residents might be able to pull their weeds or trim their shrubbery. And we could forego landscaping altogether.
We have to train people what a weed is nowadays because
Right.
they're so alienated. I think it's possible. I think there would have to be a little bit of purview over it because there's always that one person who doesn't maintain their yard.
Right.
And so I think we would have to create a management system to work with the residents to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a gardener. I know what a weed is. I can maintain 2 or 3 acres and be healthier for it. And I'm adamantly against chemicals and think we need to be illustrating gardens suitable for pollinators, birds, butterflies, bees, children and pets, etc.
And lightning bugs spend the first 2 years of their life underground.
Yes.
And I saw 4 lightning bugs last year.
So I think it's possible to create that. That's something we've never done, just turned it over to the homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we probably all grew up like that and didn't even know it. But it's certainly something I think we should continue our discussions with the city. And we see, developing this hardscape landscape plan collaboratively with the city and illustrating best practices and shoot for the ideal. The practical gets in the way sometimes, but we can always have the ideal in our head. So yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Patton.
Well, I just wanted to mention we've had some preliminary discussions about the Homeowners Association with this project and being, if you will, all-inclusive with that fee that would cover all the landscape maintenance cost on a yearly basis, that sort of thing. If you will do a Google search of Trilith and look at some of the cottage homes, you'll see that there's very sparse landscaping around those cottage units that McKinley Homes and Mr. Oliver were involved with. There's a lot of xeriscape type plant materials as well as what I call pea gravel instead of sod in the place of mulch. The gravel has a tendency to stay in place a little bit better than the mulch from rain, things of that nature. But those are some examples in the photographs that you can see on the Trilith site.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Thank you. I love the project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from questions from Mr. Oliver? Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate your updates. Item B, discussion and possible action to approve Canton's proposed accessory dwelling unit, ADU program and fee schedule. Mr. Patton?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, council members. We are requesting City Council consider approving the proposed ADU program and fee schedule. You will notice in the attachment that was provided for this discussion that impact fees are not included with the fee schedule. Staff, city manager, assistant city manager, myself and others had an extensive conversation with the city's impact fee experts, if you will, that did our last methodology update, and the determination was made by them that the ADU program would not need to assess impact fees. So we've talked about this at length. That's the major change, if you will, from what we talked about at the retreat in regards to fees, that sort of thing. Staff would recommend City Council approve this program with the proposed fee schedule.
Correct. So just, again, summarize, we had discussed all these fees and lowering and actually trying to get them as low as possible, and we discussed whether we would be able to eliminate or lower the impact fees. And so You're saying we were able to do that, so that's the only change.
Yes, sir. Basically, the total amount of permit fees for the ADUs, if they use one of the city-approved plans, is a maximum $350. That does include $50 for a site plan to verify primary structure, the accessory dwelling unit, any easements, setbacks from rear and side property lines, that sort of thing. There is a fee that is included for a water meter if the property owner and builder of the ADU is adamant that they do want to have a separate water meter. We're hopeful to encourage them to connect ADUs through the primary structure, water and sewer system. But if they do want to have that separate connection, there would be a minimal fee associated. It's the fee that's associated with an apartment unit.
Correct, okay. Are we, can't remember if we discussed this all, on the freestanding ADU units, are we going to allow those in the city other than the pre-approved plans?
If someone wants to use those plans, that's why we purchase those plans, and they're available for folks to use.
Right.
We'll let them have a set of those plans at no charge.
Right, but if someone wants to do an ADU and not use those plans,
it would still go through the review. It'd still be the $350 permit fees.
same fees, but, okay. But they'd have to create their own plans, and those would have to be approved, I guess, by the building department.
Yes.
Okay, okay. These plans that the city has purchased and created are basically pre-approved, for lack of a better
Yes, sir.
Correct. Awesome.
And we do have one person that's ready to pull a permit on the first ADU legally.
Oh, that's exciting. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, we've discussed this a lot. I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this program. It's exciting to be at this point. So, questions, comments for Mr. Patton?
Both, please.
Yes, Mr. Tolan.
Thank you. And Ms. Wilson and Ms. McGrew and I actually saw an ADU that is in Ms. Wilson's neighborhood a couple of weeks ago, and it was really, really cool. So I'm looking forward to increasing the footprint of ADUs throughout the city. I really appreciate, the public has no idea the amount of work that's gone into getting us to where we are. The city clearly is committed to moving this project and this initiative forward. It will do a lot of good for a lot of people, particularly people in need of renting, particularly people, and I'm just thinking as an example, in the case of seniors on fixed incomes, if they want to pull equity out of their home to build an ADU in their backyard, for instance, or basement or attic, it will afford them some opportunities to make some additional income. So I'm thrilled about both of those aspects of the ADU initiative. Unless anybody has any other questions, I would like to make a motion. A motion to approve Canton's proposed accessory dwelling unit program and fee schedule.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. One last item, I'll just mention for council members is I have worked with a local builder developer looking at the Laurel Canyon site. That's how I came up with a $52,000 upfront construction cost for the units. I also had that builder developer work up a price. The 702 square foot Elmwood, the 2-bedroom ADU, including the land construction cost, comes in at approximately $169,954.
Great.
The one-story attainable comes in at $229,000. That's 1,143 square feet.
Okay, great. Great information. So, again, thank you for your great work, and
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
look forward to get this program started. So, Item C, discussion and possible action on Canton Green Plan. Ms. Finley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here with the Canton Green Plan. I presented it at the last council meeting, and I was going to do a quick recap of what the Canton Green Plan is. This is a plan that myself and Bethany Watson drafted. It is some policies and procedures, some that we already participate in, but we don't have an actual policy for it. So with that, we're just trying to put something in writing of the actual policy. A couple of them are new. To hit some of the highlights, it kind of goes over some of the LEED certification for government buildings, along with commercial buildings, new construction and renovations. Obviously, if that's something we can do, we have to make sure it's feasible for the city and for the developer. It goes over Energy Star purchasing. Obviously, we want to always encourage Energy Star purchasing to help save energy. It discusses recycling, a lot of what we do in-house in our government buildings, and then also residential, what we offer some residential for recycling purposes. And and then I also have, let's see here, there's a couple other things. We're looking to do lights on, lights off. So if you leave your office, turn the lights off, so that especially over the weekend. And then also a no idling policy is kind of in with that as well. And in city vehicles, don't idle more than 5 minutes. You shouldn't be sitting in your car for 5 minutes. Get out and go where you need to go. Call it a day. Cut it off. That way you can conserve your gas. And then also a sustainability purchasing plan. That is something that we will in future address with Melissa Forrester and possibly Mr. Ingram to develop and put it in the financial plan that we currently have. That will be modified into that as well, but that's at a later date. I did want to note something though. If you look at the policy on page 5, so on page 5, we are looking to make a modification for the, let's see here, this is for, yes, okay, so it's our LED lighting policy. On the second bullet point, we want to modify this one. It says discontinue operations of all interior decorative building lighting. We want to change that to discontinuing operations of all interior decorative building lighting unless it can be used, an LED light can be used in it. Basically, that is like your office lamps, things of that nature. If it can't have an LED light bulb in it, then obviously we would discontinue the use of it. That's the only modification that we have.
Okay.
Do y'all have any questions? Or?
Great. I do have one question.
Okay, Mr. Waterman?
Ms. Penley, and this may be just getting into the weeds for me, but Section 3 under the exceptions, 3D, states that if a return on investment analysis does not indicate this is a reasonable decision, I guess my question is, do we have an established hurdle rate that would basically determine if this was, a reasonable and prudent decision? I guess that's the question. Do we have one?
No, we haven't established that yet.
Okay. Again, I said I'm pretty sure it was getting into the weeds. All right.
If okay, I'd like to make 2 comments. One, the idea of the decorative lights. Some of the offices, particular in this building, are of light fixtures that are built in. And if you're working late, a lamp might be far more effective than having the overheads on. And second, idling is not spelled IDOLING. I sent out an email letting everyone know about it and typed it very quickly. And then I got to the office and I was like, I think I misspelled that before I sent it out. So I sent my correction out to everybody. Told them not to idle those other vehicles that are out there. Don't be upset that you're in the Ford and there's a Chevy over there. Have you?
That would be American idling, right?
That's right. That's right.
I will say this plan, one of the reasons why we developed this plan is because it goes along, it checks off a lot of the boxes for the ARC Green Community Certification. So I went back and counted, and this actually covers some of the policy and procedures that we're required to have for some of their checklist. It checks off 17 items out of the 76 for ARC, and I believe I think it's 60 points toward the 175 points that we need for the bronze level for that certification. And I see in future, not now, in future possibly, like when we go to look at another level, whether it be gold or platinum, this may incur some more things on it as the city grows and as we grow that certification.
Okay. Great. Any further comments or questions for Ms. Penley? Ms. McGrew?
Ms. Penley, thank you and the board, of course, for all of this hard work, and Ms. excuse me, Watson as well. What are you looking for? Are you looking for approval of a policy? Are you looking for approval of
I'm looking
policy?
for the policy to be adopted.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I should have started with that. I apologize.
That's okay. No worries. Anything else? I'd like to make a motion if there are no other questions. I'd like to make a motion for the council to adopt the policy of the Green Plan.
I'll second.
So the motion is second. Any further? Yes.
This is a city-generated plan, City of Canton generated plan. Generated by our staff.
Yes.
The plan
Yes.
has been generated by our staff.
Yes. Any further comments?
Yes.
Yes, including the modification that Ms. Penley outlined for us. Thank you.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. If there are no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Penn. Item D, discussion and possible action on an energy service contracts with Schneider Electric Buildings Americas. Mr. Ingram.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. About a day ago, I presented to you a final draft of the proposed contract with Schneider for energy services. I have with us tonight Ms. Jen Miller. I'll ask her to come up and help me answer some questions that you may have. But while she's coming up, if you don't mind, do you mind if I could give a summary of the project for those that are in the audience or maybe listening or watching us at home?
Please do.
I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, Ms. Miller. The $10.7 million project, and I want to preface this by saying we're not using property tax revenue for this. This is going to be predominantly SPLOST, in which it is eligible to use ARPA funds or possibly some impact funds, but it's predominantly going to be a SPLOST project. City Hall's HVAC, as well as the public safety building, the PD department's HVAC, are well over 20 years old. They're approaching, or quite honestly, exceeding their useful life. So we did an RFQ. That was maybe a year ago. We did an RFQ. Schneider proposed on that, and we've been working with them to come up to the proposal that you have before you tonight in the energy services contract. The project's going to consist of replacing those two HVAC units, again, at a total cost for the whole project of $10.7 million. Two HVAC units on both buildings, as well as a new roof on this building, which I believe even exceeds the age of that HVAC unit. We're also going to propose to install some solar panels on the roof of this building, which we hope, in conjunction with our existing solar panel at our parking deck, will offset a vast majority of the electricity here at City Hall. We're also going to propose a demonstration solar project at a couple of our parks. And we're also going to ask Schneider to do a streetlight audit. For many years, we've been working or trying to work with Georgia Power on trying to get a good handhold of what streetlights the city owns versus what streetlights Georgia Power owns, the rate structures, et cetera. So Schneider's, as part of the project, has been amenable to doing that for us. And a little tip of the hat to Ms. Penley and Ms. Watson. I believe that Ms. Miller's also been already assisting them with, reaching this city's green initiative plan. So that's going to be also within the scope of this project. So beyond that, I know that we've had a lot of discussions. It's been a long time coming, so open the floor. If y'all have any questions, if Ms. Miller could help me answer those, I certainly appreciate it.
Definitely. I just want to begin by thanking everyone for their hard work. This is a very complex project, much needed project. I know we've taken a innovative approach to this. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Ms. Miller and Schneider for their patience with us. I want to thank our team, Mr. Ingram, Mr. Peppers, and our entire team for their hard work on this project. I know we've worked very hard on that. I want to thank council for their review and their patience and diligence in going through this, and especially Mr. Waterman for his thoughtful review of everything and his expertise in this. I know we're not engineers by far, but certainly having his expertise involved and everyone coming together and working, for the same end goal, which is impressive. And it doesn't happen in most cities or hardly any other city. I think Ms. Miller could probably attest to that. So I'm very proud of our team and how hard everyone has worked and how well we've worked together. So I just want to thank everyone for the work on this. It's a mammoth project and something we all know. It's a cool day out there today, but we all know when it's warm. We know the issues very readily here, especially in this auditorium. So I just want to thank everyone for the work. And I know there have been lots of questions, but any other questions, comments tonight from Ms. Miller?
Yeah. So I think when this started, at least from my understanding, we were really just looking to replace the AC units, but it's turned into much more, but for the better, because if we look at the roadmap and creating sustainable neighborhoods, sustainability is something that's obviously very important. It means something different to everyone else. When I saw that, HVAC units were a focus, and forgive me, Nathan, for sticking my nose into it, but that was something that was really near and dear to my heart, or traumatic, I guess, because in 2020 I spent the summer on rooftops in Pascagoula, Mississippi, evaluating 180 of those units, rooftop units. So, but I like efficiency. I like sustainability. I like money. I like to see hard savings. This is what I do for a living. So I'm again, I appreciate my annoying you probably. But if there are no other comments, I'd like to make the motion to approve the energy services contract with Schneider Electric Buildings Americas Incorporated, and to authorize the mayor to execute the contract as presented.
I second, and I'd also like to point out that we are these two buildings are in historic downtown Canton, and this action will allow us to save two historic buildings. So I second.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Further questions, comments? A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for good work.
Thanks for making the trip, Jen.
Not too far. I'm always
She keeps saying that.
So we'll move into new business now. Item A, discussion and possible action on Georgia Power relocation agreement. Ms. Watson?
Hi.
Hi.
So I sent a memo out with this, kind of going over what this was for. So there are 6 power poles in Harmon Park that will have to be relocated for the upgrades. We received an amount of $211. It's on the other sheet of paper. $211 for the relocation from Georgia Power. I have worked with Atkins to eliminate 2 of those relocations and have received a new amount from Georgia Power. That amount is $162,492 for that relocation. I will say that in the contract currently we do have $54,000 allocated for the relocation. We also have about $105,000 left in owner's allowance, and we've saved about $30,000 in some fencing that was kind of a double. Anyways, we've saved $30,000 in fencing. So we should have, barring any other major issues going on, have the money in this contract to pay for the relocation without having to come back and ask for additional funds. I will have a new agreement at the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So you are not asking for action tonight on what was in the presentation? Are you asking for action on the next meeting on the new agreement?
Yeah, I was originally going to ask, and this is critical path. We need those power poles moved as soon as possible in order to continue on with the project. So it is very important, but also we don't have the new contract. We know that it's going to change, so I wanted to wait another 2 weeks.
Okay. Questions?
We just specifically wanted to bring it to your attention, and you know, they gave us the original agreement for 6 poles. We know it's going to change down to 4, and so they're going to want a relocation agreement approved by the council before they start working.
Good. So you got the amount from them, but not the official agreement.
Yes.
And that,
They wanted to get an amount to you as quickly as possible, and I just received it earlier today, so they just haven't had time to draft up the new agreement.
well, we appreciate the numbers going down. So thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Item B, discussion to award task order number 9 to Black and Beach for design and bidding services for the SR 20, State Road 20, I-575 water main replacement project. Mr. Hatabian?
Yes, thank you. This project kind of piggybacks with the new booster pump station we're putting at Brown Industrial Park. We do have a bottleneck in the line going over the bridge. So what this project is to upsize that line that's hanging on the bridge and tie it in from Brown Industrial all the way over to where the new 20-inch line starts on the other side of 575. We broke this out as a separate project because it would be a totally different type of contractor doing this work, and so we could do both projects, concurrently. And this is for, like I say, for the design and permitting and bidding services for this. Permitting is going to be, an issue just dealing with GDOT and hanging a line on their bridge. But we've had a couple meetings with them already on it, so they know it's coming.
Okay. And you're not asking for action on this tonight, just basically
Not
giving
this
us a
time.
heads up that
Yeah.
I'm going to be asking for money next time.
Next time.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Tabian on this? Okay, thank you. Item C, discussion of possible action to relinquish 979 Chatton Drive from the Canton Water and Sewer Service Area to Cherokee County Water and Sewer Authority. Mr. Tabian?
Yes, back in 1999, 2000, when House Bill 489 came to be, this one property was listed in the City of Canton service area. We can't serve it, or we have no facilities to serve it right now. The Water Authority has a water line out there, probably just a few hundred feet from it, and there's a person that wants to build a home on that property and can't build it without the water, so we just wanted to relinquish that to the Water Authority so they can go and build their home.
Basically. From my understanding, we're not supplying, so there's no loss in revenue.
We don't have
to
any
the
water
city,
over there, nothing.
And they sent the letter requesting we relinquish that, correct? That's
Yeah, our service delivery agreement basically states that they can't provide service within our territory, but they can ask us to relinquish service. And the opposite, we can do the same thing with the Water and Sewer Authority if something happens like that.
So we have received that letter, correct?
We have received the letter, and the board did
Yes,
vote to send the letter.
the Water Authority Board voted to approve, or to make that request at their last meeting and approve that, so they're just waiting on us.
Okay. Any questions? Ms. McGrew?
Are you looking for action
Yes,
tonight?
yeah, so they can get started
May
on
I?
their project.
Yes.
I make a motion to relinquish the property at 979 Chatton Drive from the Canton Water and Sewer Service Area to the Cherokee County Water and Sewage Authority.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Item D, discussion to issue a change order to Clark Rees Young for changes and revisions at the Water Pollution Control Plant. Mr. Tabian?
Yeah, these are the changes that I talked about in the presentation at the last meeting. I will say I was a little overzealous when I created the change order because there was one item that we're still negotiating costs with and talking with Atkins and people out in the field in the office. Have some comments and some pushback on the costs of their, I guess it's the reuse system. So we should have a revised change order for the next meeting. But like I say, these is just a summary of the changes that I talked about last time.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Item E, discussion of resolution for stating intent to seek diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging certification. Ms. Waters, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This certification is a new certification that GMA is just a month to 2 months. There's no one certified at this time. So our request is for the discussion of the intent. Our first step is the intent, resolution of intent that we want to achieve these goals. There's 4 categories. There's bronze, gold, or silver, gold, and platinum. We have on our resolution of intent to shoot for platinum. We have a lot of projects and policies that's been put in place over the last 3 to 5 years that can qualify us for these levels. We're here to discuss. If I can answer any questions, possibly. We've attached some documents. Mr. Peppers and Mr. Ingram both are here to help in support of that.
I'm going to go down there for a minute.
Okay, sure.
Good evening. This program was launched by the Georgia Municipal Association and several of the staff that have been working through their nonprofit, the Georgia Cities Solutions. And when the program first came out, Mr. Ingram, Ms. Waters, and I sat down and looked at it, and we reached out to see if we could get a conference call set up. Ms. Waters sat through that, got the information on the program. For us to be able to participate in the program, just to apply, they want a resolution of support from the local jurisdiction noting that we are interested in the program for certification. There are 7 specific areas that they look at for certification, and your level of certification is based off of how many of those areas you work towards. Those 7 areas are workforce housing, education, health and well-being, public safety and restorative justice, community and economic development, municipal workforce development and employment, and community dialogue and stakeholder engagement. In 2 of those categories, where one of them has to be the community dialogue and stakeholder engagement, you get bronze. If you do 3 to 4 categories, you get silver, 5 to 6 categories of gold, and 7 categories is platinum. I will note that when we received the information, we basically went through the categories and self-scored as it relates to things that we're currently working on in the city. So, for example, and I'm not going to read all of these, but for example, on workforce housing, it talks about having a community housing assessment completed. Well, we checked that box because we just had ours updated. It talks about training for city government staff and the council on housing projects and priorities. We've done that. It talks about having an affordability plan. Those are some things that we've just approved tonight on our ADU program. On education, it talks about things like providing city internships and job training, and also providing opportunities for young people to be employed within the community. We just had our teen job fair as an example. Under health and well-being, it talks about having opportunities for employees to have mental health care, which we provide through some of our employee assistance programs. Under public safety, state certification is listed in there. We're a state-certified police department. It talks about training in anti-bias and emotional intelligence. Chief and I went over the list, and pretty much everything that's required in there, our police department is already doing as part of their processes. On community and economic development, we have programs like how to start a business in the city of Canton. We have programs on how to help people online starting a business. We work with groups like the Cherokee Office of Economic Development and incentive programs that they have for businesses. On municipal workforce, we do things like blind applications. So we remove everything on an application that's not related to the skills or the work that's being provided by the applicant, so that when our staff is reviewing the applications, they're really just seeing the content of the individual and not any of the background. We have already provided diversity training through the Georgia Municipal Association to all of our staff here in the city of Canton. And then on community dialogue and stakeholder engagement, we have open houses. We have had town hall meetings. We have a diversity and inclusion board. We have meetings with our boards to talk about topics of relevance as it relates to how we spread our roadmap to success, for instance. One thing that we probably didn't do so great on, and I'll admit this, is the resolution of support is a sample resolution, and that's the one that we brought forward to you. We want to at least have an opportunity to apply for the program. And I've been asked by some residents about why we would want to do that. Now, I'll tell you a couple of things from my perspective. One, when we adopted our roadmap for success, for example, there are at least 3 industries that have moved specifically to the city of Canton because they agreed with what we stand for. They liked the fact that sustainability was important to us. They liked the fact that we were focused on parks and recreation. They liked the fact that we are trying to make our workforce match the demographics of our community. So I see an opportunity to participate in a program like this as being a really good incentive and recruitment tool for other industries in economic development in the city. Additionally, it's a good program for our staff as well. When we are going out and we are trying to hire in the metropolitan area, having a program that shows that we do care about the employee, we care about their mental health, we care about the work that they do, we want to make sure that they can be successful, is a good thing. And then lastly, I think it will be good for our diversity and inclusion task force. This will give them some direction of things that the city finds important, but also are standards that the Georgia Municipal Association thinks would be good for other cities in the state of Georgia to also look at it becoming more well-rounded. It would be easy for us to say, it's great that they have this program. We're already working on all these things. But I think it's important for us to kind of toot our own horn every once in a while and show other cities in the state of Georgia you don't have to have crazy language and programs to get these things done. You just have to get down to the work at heart, and that's what you get to do when you work with a nonpartisan mayor and council and a great staff. We would like to be in the program. If there's concerns that you have or questions that you have about it, I'm happy to answer those. We don't have to have action tonight, but if we want to be one of the first to apply, that we can take action tonight. That's up to y'all. So.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for staff for look at this and bring it forward. I mean, I think it's impressive that you did review our roadmap and self-scored, and that we are doing all these things already. I mean, I think, and also that the roadmap, knowing that that came from our citizens, that our citizens have approved that they want to be doing these things also, that, and, this program is just, guidelines and best practices of what cities should be doing, from GMA. So I think that, this resolution is just an intent to apply for the program. It's not saying that we are doing these things. And even if we get certification, it's just, again, kudos for doing these things. It's nothing more than that. But, I'm proud of the fact that what our citizens wanted as priorities for the cities, the tenants are what the citizens' priorities were, including diversity and inclusion, that the GMA and the state's kind of catching up to what we're doing. So to me, that's impressive. But I appreciate the staff bringing that forward as a recommendation to apply for the program and see where we land and get recognition for the work that we're doing as a team and the staff is doing as a team. So and doing the job that our citizens ask us to do through the roadmap. So, Ms. McGrew.
Thank you. Mr. Peppers and Ms. Waters, thank you for everything that you're doing with this. I just wanted to say that the programs that we've done, the things we've already done, to me, they're just practical and common sense things that everyone should be doing with respect to humanity, especially with respect to our citizens. So I applaud you. Thank you for guiding us along this road and making sure that we are aware of what we're doing and saying.
I also want to reiterate, I think what Mr. Peppers touched on, it's good business. It's good business for the cities. And we've had major companies, applaud us on the roadmap and really, it really lured them to the city and increased their interest in the city. And we're seeing that more and more so every day, so which is really exciting too. So, Ms. Schmidt?
Yes, I would like to move to adopt the resolution for stating intent to seek diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging certification to start our process toward that certification.
Second.
Mayor?
Yep.
Before we vote, can I make a comment?
Certainly.
First of all, I want you to know that I certainly believe in what the city's doing, and my comments have nothing to do with what we're already doing. But I do want to let you know that I do have a problem with this resolution. You heard Mr. Peppers and Ms. Waters' comments. Canton is a leader in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But I have a couple of rhetorical questions and comments concerning this resolution, which is food for thought. Will this certification change any current practices for hiring city employees or granting zoning, annexation, and other changes now permitted by council? I believe our current practices have been confirmed and not questioned. I noticed the resolution calls for mandated meetings for Team Canton and for the public. Do we know who will conduct these meetings and who will determine the content? For public safety, this resolution requires officers to attend training for emotional intelligence. Do we know what is meant by that phrase and who will conduct the meetings? In economic development, it is required to develop city projects and contracts to advance equality. Do we know who will write these policies and their definition of equality? As I read all the many requirements for this particular resolution, I was reminded of the resolution Team Canton sent to the Georgia legislature last year, letting them know that we do not need their help in developing policies affecting our city. In essence, that we know our city and our people. We don't need someone else telling us how to run Canton. Our roadmap clearly states we celebrate diversity in our community. It is vibrant and engaging and encourages economic, cultural, and social diversity. I'm skeptical of outside forces writing resolutions for their certification with many requirements to be followed. we have made this preemptive strike in our roadmap. However, I would not oppose the city writing our own resolution, which highlights what we have done or what is being done.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Appreciate your comments. So, Mr. Peppers, could you address like the resolution? Okay, so I understand the resolution is basically stating our intent to apply for the program. And I also understand your comments, this, that this, it's kind of a template and it was not necessarily written as well as it could be. So the resolution is basically saying we're going to apply for this. The resolution doesn't bind us to doing these things.
That's correct.
Correct.
The resolution is stating that we understand what their program is, that we're providing intent that we seek to apply for their program. Basically, the reason why they did it that way is they didn't want staff applying for a program and then bringing it back to the elected officials as a recommendation to be involved. They wanted the elected officials to know up front that the city had an interest in the program, and as an organization, they wanted to make sure it was being led by the elected officials, the application, not just staff deciding to go at it alone.
That makes sense. What you said makes sense. The sort of, I don't necessarily know their resolution makes sense, but I think the intent is the resolution is not binding us to the program. The resolution is basically just offering us a chance to apply for the program.
Correct.
Ms. Smith?
But if we vote.
Well, I guess I would like to know, I mean, Ms. Wilson says those are rhetorical questions, but they seem very literal. So does the staff have concerns about those questions, or we can apply for the program and then those questions can be addressed?
So part of the application process is we basically go through their list of requirements. If we were applying for bronze, for instance, we would say, here are the two areas that the city's interested in working in, and here is how we meet what you have laid out as requirements and electives in those areas. These are the programs that we're already doing. In our case, based upon the roadmap, we feel like we will get platinum because we are doing everything that they mention is required in every single area of the program. We will have to self-report to them what it is that we're doing which meets that requirement, and then their group will then evaluate those and make sure that we're actually doing those before we can get certification.
So if for some reason they came back and said the only way you can get this platinum certification is if you implement a rule that says XYZ, and we didn't like that rule, then we would just say, thanks, but no thanks.
Correct.
I mean, it's no difference really than the ARC, Green City. I mean, what we passed in the green plan tonight is like we want to get one of these levels, but this program doesn't force us to do these things. I mean, it's just like.
But it does say they're required and mandated, and that's what
if we achieve one of those levels, I mean.
But in all through the resolution, there are requirements and mandates, and that's what I have a problem with.
So one thing I would say on that is when you apply for the program, your application is going to state what you're already doing. The certification is for 3 years. At the end of 3 years, you'll have to recertify again. So if there's something, for instance, if we applied in 2 or 3 areas and there was something we decided that we wanted to go for in the next area, but we didn't like something that we were doing or something changed locally, we wouldn't have to certify in that same area. We still get that decision-making process. They're just saying, these are what we require. You tell us how you can meet those. Not exactly how you're going to meet those from them, but how we're currently meeting those.
But basically, this resolution, though, is just that we're applying for the program.
That's correct.
Even though it's poorly worded, it's only like we resolved to apply for this program. Is that correct?
That's correct. And as I'm reading the actual two-page resolution, I don't see the requirement on the two-page resolution about police department taking emotional training. I see that as one of the things that they list as a possible requirement under that section when you're going for certification, but it's not something they're requiring you to agree to in the resolution.
So they're saying if that's something you offer in your city, it would qualify.
Correct.
So, and if they're saying mandated meetings with residents or economic development or whatever, and we say we've had those meetings, that's what that line.
Well, so for instance, if it said mandated meetings, what we would say is, here's the following types of meetings that the city currently has. We have open house during Georgia Cities Week. We did a town hall meeting in this particular neighborhood. We do mandatory public input meetings on development projects by developers. We would go through all of our existing processes and spell out how there are mandatory meetings in our current processes.
So we will use our language to answer their questions, not their language.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, yes, just to be clear, the resolution states the City of Canton intends to pursue certification in the GMA Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Certification Program in the categories of community dialogue, stakeholder engagement, workforce housing, education, health and well-being, public safety, restorative justice, community economic development, municipal workforce development, and employment, and has designated the city's municipal clerk as the point person for this purpose. The resolution is only the City of Canton intends to pursue certification. So that is the resolution.
And I just point out what you said, pursue certification in the GMA program.
Well, yeah, it is the GMA program. So, but basically, the resolution is that we're just
signing,
applying to.
Aren't we signing that we're signing off on this
No,
particular resolution?
No, that's not a resolution. That's just the program. The resolution is that we're applying to seek certification. So we would apply, we'd show them what we're currently doing. This is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, and they'd say, hey, everything you're doing,
Right.
you're already bronze or platinum or
Right,
whatever.
but
You don't have
I
to
go
change anything.
back to what I said. If we apply and go by their guidelines, that's the only way we can get certification.
So what I would be suggesting to council is, if you decide to move forward with applying, we will bring back to council a report that shows here's their requirements, here's how we meet their requirements before we submit it. If there's something that you don't like in that, then that would be a local decision before the application actually goes in. You will get to determine what's on the final application.
And we're not committing to doing any of those things. I mean, this is applying, or we apply and say, hey, here's what we're doing, and they say, oh, well, you're bronze or you're silver. Fine. We don't have to do anything else, you know. It could be that we're just see where we come in now based on what we're doing now. It's like,
I know.
But it's
We're doing everything, and we're doing it right.
right. And it could be that we just are certified already at one of those levels, and we're just getting acknowledgement for that. And we look at those things and kind of say, well, we don't want to do that, and so it's not worth it. But the resolution is not saying that we're doing those things. This is what we're applying to see where we stand as far as this resolution tonight. So.
You've almost convinced me.
I'm not trying to convince you. I just want to clarify what this resolution was for tonight. This is not resolving that we're going to do those things. This is resolving that we would apply for certificate for the program.
I understand. And as I said, you've almost convinced me.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to leave my motion on the floor.
Okay. And we had a second.
Sean had a second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay.
I said almost.
Almost. Certainly your prerogative. Motion carries. Moving on to item F, discussion of ordinance amendment related to definitions of electric bicycles for use within public parks. Mr. Peppers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. During our retreat back in March, it was brought forward from Mr. Tolan about a concern as it relates to the definition of bicycles in our parks. Our ordinance made a differentiation between bicycles and motorized vehicles. And the question came up about electric bicycles and how those fit. And so we sat down, Mr. Dyer and I sat down, had a conversation with the chief of police to look at enforcement and what was currently under the ordinance. And what you have been presented from Mr. Dyer is a copy of some ordinance amendments that would allow certain classifications of electric bicycles within the parks. Now, one thing that has come up as part of that conversation as well that was brought up by a resident was, what about mobility vehicles? So in terms of technology, an individual who has a disability but is riding a rascal, we'll use a brand name, is riding a rascal on our trail, is that allowed? And so Mr. Dyer, I posed that question to him, and he came up with some subsequent language just to clarify that those are allowed on our trails and that there's really a difference between things that are related to mobility and things that are for recreational purposes. And I'm sure Mr. Dyer
The ordinance that you'll be voting on will include that additional language. That's not in there right now.
Oh, it's not in there.
No.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on that after the resident asked a question, which I thought was a great question. And I think the term that I found was electrical personal assistive mobility devices. So,
Yeah.
if you want to use that, I'll let you use it for free.
Unfortunately, I didn't bring the wording, but it was basically any vehicle that is necessary for mobility. So it was sort of a broader way of describing it without trying to figure out what all those things are.
Yeah.
So I think
it sounds like what a
golf
lot of yours
cart
say.
might assist somebody in mobility, but that's not what it's primarily designed for.
And I did reach out to the chief about that, and he verified that the police department's not going to make somebody in a rascal go off the trails. But clarifying it for residents is a good thing. You know, that might be a question and a reason why someone doesn't think that they can utilize the trail.
Well, I think clarifying, but also, promoting that they are welcome and, hopefully can and will. So, and also some of the, maybe even the outfitters could offer some of those devices for rent for our citizens.
One thing to keep in mind is a Class 2 electrical bike can go 20 miles an hour?
It can go up to 20 miles an hour.
So you're talking about things going 20 miles an hour anyway. And somebody on a regular bicycle is probably going faster than that sometimes. So,
right.
Personal mobility vehicles probably aren't going 20 miles an hour. So.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may comment quickly. The emphasis behind bringing that up in the first place really had nothing to do with the fact that I ride an e-bike. It has more to do with tourism opportunities. We have a couple of outfitters in town that might want to utilize e-bikes for their customers. And it was really more of an emphasis on what do we need to put in place as an ordinance to make safety paramount for not only the riders, but the pedestrians that are also on. So I know that there's more work to be done on this, but I hope we keep that in mind. And, there definitely are opportunities to increase safety and put within the ordinance some things like audible devices, a horn or a bell, whatever, just to let folks know that you're coming so that we don't have unnecessary accidents on our trails. But that's really all I had to say about it.
Okay. Another item to note on that, we're working right now putting together the RFP for Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We hope to have that out in the middle of the month for companies to begin reviewing. I expect as part of that process, there will be an update to that chapter of the ordinances based on what comes out of that Parks and Recreation Master Plan. If you recall, when we were going through the process of changing all of the city's ordinances and updating them, we left that particular chapter out because we're doing so much construction as it relates to parks there's still questions up in the air about trails and connection. And so I think all of those bigger issues that haven't been touched in a while will get touched as part of that master plan process.
Great. Mr. Peppers.
A couple items that I have tonight. First, we have the Georgia Municipal Annual Convention that comes up in June, and it is time for the appointment of district officers. GMA is handling this a little bit differently than they have in the past, and they are requesting that the municipality review the slate of officers, that the municipality agree to the slate of officers, and that the municipality nominate or declare someone to cast the ballot on behalf of the municipality. So what you have before you is the recommendation from the nominating committee, the nomination for the GMA District 3 North officers for 2023-24. For president of District 3 North is Colin Ake, who is a council member from Woodstock, and vice president is Mayor Bill Grant of Canton. So council would need to determine if they are fine with that slate and then delegate to someone to cast that ballot on behalf of the city. And I think you could do that all as part of one motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Wolf.
I'd like to make a motion in favor of the nominees, President Colin Ake, Vice President Bill Grant, and appoint Annie Fortner, Canton City Clerk, to submit these nominations, our approval of these nominations to GMA.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion.
The other thing I wanted to do is update you about our activities last week during Georgia Cities Week. It was a great week. The weather didn't cooperate as much with us as we had hoped, but we did have a pretty good turnout for our Teen Career Academy that was here on Monday for that workshop and expo. Several good connections came through for youth who were hired out of that event. On Tuesday night, we had a great town hall meeting over at St. Paul AME Church, talking about the housing projects that are occurring at Ship Street and Jefferson, as well as other projects throughout the city. The mayor and Mr. Tolan were there, along with several staff at that event. Wednesday, we had an open house in this room. We had some really great conversation with residents about things that are going on in the city. We did the same thing on Thursday. Unfortunately, Thursday night was a washout for our Taste of Canton event. That event was moved to May the 11th. And so at 4:30 p.m. down at the Mill on Etowah, we'll kick off Taste of Canton again on May the 11th. Over the weekend, we had our film festival over at the theater, and there was good crowds for that. We had a fantastic Garden in the Park event, and kudos to Valinda Hardy and Kelly Penley and our Parks and Recreation and Public Works team for putting that event on Saturday. And I will note for you that tomorrow night we start back with our First Friday series for the year. And the best way to return to First Friday is to invite the return to play First Friday. And so we're very excited about that and hope to see you downtown tomorrow night for First Friday. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about those things or anything else in the city.
Any questions for Mr. Peppers?
I do have one comment. Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. So while we were at the church doing our presentation, it was announced that there's going to be a kickball tournament at Etowah River Park starting at around 1 p.m. I think Chief stepped out. He was puffing his chest out that last year PD kind of swept the competition. So encourage anybody, particularly my fellow city council members that want to play a little kickball. I'm going to try to get out there on Sunday. Should be a lot of fun. Etowah River.
It's not the same as
a little
soccer.
bit different than soccer, but you still use your feet, yes.
And a ball.
And a ball.
Awesome. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Peppers.
Thank you.
Just check and make sure there are no additional council introduced items. Just a couple quick things in my report. City Today, we posted on the city website. There's a great article on Canton in the May issue of James Magazine. This is a statewide magazine that focuses on the intersection of politics and economic development, and had the opportunity to be interviewed by that magazine several weeks ago for supposed to be a short feature, and it wound up being a 4-page article. So check that out. It's a great update on all the great things going on, and as they referred to it in the byline, Cool Canton. So check that out. And then in our last meeting, we discussed the short-term rental committee, and I wanted to make an appointment of the mayor committee to work with staff on that ordinance and those guidelines and review that. And I'd like to ask from Ward 1, Ms. Joellen Wilson to serve on that committee, Ward 2, Sean Tolan, and from Ward 3, Ms. Brooke Schmidt to serve on that committee. If you guys could serve on that committee and work with staff to bring forward your recommendations for that committee. And then I did receive a letter from the county manager, and this is based on regarding CDBG funds. And on CDBG funds, we have two options from the city of how we can, I guess, proceed on CDBG funds. And one is to, Mr. Peppers maybe elaborate on this, and one is to work through the county and receive funds through the county. And the other one is to not go through the county, but to elect to be included as part of, I guess, the Irby County designation for Cherokee County. I guess one's go through the county and one is not to go through the county for 3 years. Mr. Peppers, can you elaborate on the difference there? So
Cherokee County is an entitled county based on its population, so it gets a direct allocation of funding from the from the federal government for CDBG. If we stay with the county, we just apply to the county for projects that we would be interested in. We have the option of pulling out of the county and participating in the statewide competitive pool. I believe the city of Ball Ground has done that a couple of times. We have pretty much any time we've had a project that we've taken to the county that's met the CDBG pool for that period of time, we've received some funding for it. Sometimes we do have projects. Sometimes the funding is not enough and the federal requirements make it kind of crazy to do the project through CDBG funds anyways.
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation to council would just be to stay with the county. It's a cleaner process for us if we want to be involved in CDBG. But we do not have a CDBG project every year. That doesn't occur.
Right. So I just wanted to call this to your attention because I have to select one of these, stay with the county or go rogue. So I just wanted to discuss this with Mr. Peppers. We discussed that probably the best option would be to stay with the county, but I just wanted to get council's approval if you agreed with that option before I signed off on this.
Do we need to make a motion?
I think it'd probably be best to do that so before I sign my name to it.
I don't like the way you think, though. I would like to make a motion that we continue our CDBG funding opportunities through the county, through Cherokee County.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. All members voters of the motion. I'll sign and send that in. I believe that's all I had tonight, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session, discuss real estate and litigation.
Motion. I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss real estate and litigation.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.